To one, people of the world. Hello and welcome to Marketing as a Foreign Language, episode 224. There is such a thing as coach aversion, okay? There are people out there that go, you know what, I don't need to be coached, I don't want to be coached. Sometimes I count myself among them, which of course stems from my own ignorance. Did you know that there's this incredible documentary, I've talked about it on the show once or twice before, about a coach who works for a university that basically has these university level kids for 2 years, but for some reason it didn't work out. You know, like they didn't make it to the NBA, they didn't make it to the Big Ten colleges or whatever. They landed there for whatever reason. And this coach is just absolutely awe-inspiring. I love this guy. Now, imagine that you have a H-1B visa, maybe I said that right, and you are an immigrant and you're a Google engineer now, and you've grinded every single moment since you were a kid. You wanted the dream, you fought for the dream, you made the dream real. You got the money, you're at home, but here's the thing. You're at home because it's 7 p.m. Why is it 7 p.m.? Because you say yes to everyone all the time, constantly, because that's what got you there. And so to be able to self-reflect, realize that at a certain point, you have to change that behavior if you want to, see your children. It can be tricky. It can be nuanced. It can be hard. And so our coach today ain't just no normal coach. Our coach today is working with doctors and lawyers and these Google engineers and these really high-performing people because they need help too. Because for them, having this success can be like golden handcuffs. And for folks that may not have golden handcuffs, you go, screw those people. It's ridiculous, golden handcuffs. Try suffering in the way that I've suffered. Well, this is the nature of everyone's suffering. There are flavors of suffering, okay? You can have sweet suffering, it's still suffering, sour suffering, rich suffering, poor suffering. I mean, I have a friend of mine who's an attorney, and she deals with some people that are mega rich, and then the IRS comes after them because they have all these properties in another country because they're doing tax evasion. There's no love in the marriage. They're suicidal. They hate themselves, and it's just an absolute mess, and they're hiring attorneys at $350 an hour to try to make it through this nightmare. So this is the reality for many folks. And so Alexis, our guest today, spends time in these spaces helping these folks with, you could call it productivity. I consider her a productivity expert. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show, Alexis.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here and talk about all this stuff. And yeah, I'm excited for this conversation.
So pronounce your last name.
Haselberger.
I was going to say Haselberger, but I didn't ask before the show and I wasn't going to get it wrong. Alexis Haselberger. You are or are not just like your clients?
Oh, I am. I mean, that's an interesting question, right? I am not like my clients in that I have the skills already around how to set up systems and to say no a little bit easier. And, I've thought through all of this stuff and I've learned it all. But I am just like my clients in that, like, there was a time when I didn't know this stuff, right? And that it isn't about who we fundamentally are as people, that a lot of this stuff, it's just skills you can learn if you practice, right? And if you know about them. So Can I have that answer?
Yeah. So I'm going to just come right out and say it. Why isn't it easy for these people? It's ridiculous. You're super successful. You're a lawyer, right? Like, yeah, I get it. You're stressed. You've got so much going on, but why can't you just hire somebody? Why can't you just hire people to take the burden off of your plate and go spend some time with your children? What's so hard about that?
Well, let's say you're a lawyer, right? Let's say you have 3 really big clients, right? And they're demanding all of your time. Now, what happens if you start saying no to them, right? Maybe it's going to be fine. And I try to help people to understand that, like, yes, we have to experiment with this to see what our boundaries are going to be. Like, nobody sets boundaries for us, right? Like, we have to set the boundaries for ourselves. But it's also really scary to do that, right? If you have if you have grinded your whole life to get to whatever level of success you're at, then there's a really big part of you that equates grinding with that success, right? So you're saying like, instead of that I got here despite that, I got here because of that, right? And so it can be really hard from just like a mindset and a brain perspective to say, okay, so I'm just going to do things in a completely different way and hope that my success stays where it is, right?
Yeah.
That's for people.
Well, that's true. I mean, I've got some pretty demanding clients, and recently I let go of a client and regretted it. So, what's up, John? Trust is the answer. Thanks for John's comment coming in from LinkedIn. We love you. We love everyone who leaves comments in chat. So yeah, regretted it and dealing with that regret, because my situation was, okay, I have a client who is driving my staff crazy. The check's nice. I want the money. It's a pandemic. So, the money is super helpful given the situation of things. However, I need to go hire a new pay-per-click person. And if I keep this client as is, this new pay-per-click person, I won't be able to hire anyone because he's going to eat them alive. Like the second they walk in, it's going to be email, somebody report, he's just going to do what he does. And we were getting to the end of the pay period. I'm sorry, the end of when we would renew his card, run his card for another month. And I was in a mood, Alexis. I'm not going to lie. Have you ever been in a mood? I was in a mood. And I was like, enough is enough is enough is enough. And I basically laid out in an email, hey, look, we're done. And he came back with so you're firing me? Like email? I didn't even respond. Because guess what? If you can read, you already know that that's what's happening. So why are you asking me something that is very clear? I made it abundantly clear. And so he worked with my staff. They got all the creds. And then the other thing too is he went from being really to very nice. Nice to us, because boundaries do that sometimes where you just go, enough. John says, thanks, love will take you far. Work the magic till you make that move. I love that. Been there, done that, and it did not go well. I agree with your view. Thank you, John. We love you. So Alexis, when we're going to take you back now. So when you were younger, were you Mrs. Straight A, everything has to be perfect, college scholarship type A person?
I was definitely straight A and a college scholarship person, but I was not type A or perfect person. So I think what I mean by that is like my goal, like throughout I think starting in middle school was like, how do I get straight A's and go to class as little as possible? Like those two things drove me at the same time. And so I was always scheming, like always trying to figure out like, how can I get a straight A in this class? Like, what do I need to do in this specific class to get a straight A without going there? And I was like making deals with teachers. Like my favorite deal that I would make is like, I just come for the tests. And if I get a straight A on the test, then I don't have to come to class until the next test. And so I made that deal with a lot of teachers. I made that deal in college.
Wow. So how much of this do you think you're just genetically blessed? You know what I mean? Because that is not normal behavior, Alexis. You understand that, right? That's very weird.
Yeah, I think, well, if we're going to say like being genetically blessed, but like for better or for worse, lots of times for worse, I don't care what people think, and I don't think about what people think. Like I almost never think about what other people are thinking about me. Which sometimes comes back to bite me, and all the terrible.
Of course, yeah, of course it would.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, but I think that like that in when I was a kid and in school and stuff, like one, you have like limited filter and limited experience with the world, and so I would just be like, yeah, I'm going to do this thing, and then I think sometimes people would like they'd be taken aback, but they didn't really have a good answer, right? Or like they were
hey,
like,
if it works, I'm just saying. The actual method of, hey, I'll go take that test. If I get an A, how about you leave me alone and I'll show up for your next stupid test and I'll get an A in that stupid one too. And for it to work, you can't be dumb. Okay, like do you understand what I'm saying? It's that simple. Like you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I think maybe you need to reflect on your own intelligence for a second, Alexis. I mean, you have to be really smart to pull that off.
Well, I mean, let's just say it would have only worked once if I wasn't.
That's right. Yeah, that's exactly right. And D, okay, you know,
Right. Be like,
wow.
all right.
So
Yeah. So
well,
so I
I
was
mean,
always like that, but I wasn't ever searching for perfection.
okay. Well, interesting. I mean, to me, but okay, well, let's clarify perfection. So perfection to me is making the absolute most out of any circumstance. So if you have a video game, say, where it's hell. Like if you look at most video games, they just try to recreate a hell, right? Like let's talk about Contra, right? It's a Nintendo game from way back in the day. Like you just spawn and you're a dude with a gun and you're running through and everything's trying to kill you all the time and you're just trying to not die and you're killing things so they don't kill you, and then you got to fight aliens at the end, and it's very strange. And so there is such a thing as perfection within that context, right? There is a perfect run through of that game. You just have to do it, right? You just have to understand, and you can literally program a computer to perfectly run through that game as quickly as possible and as efficiently as possible. And so, from my perspective, perfection is what you just described, which is I know these things already. Sitting in a room being told things that I already know is not the best use of my time. So why don't we skip that? I'll prove to you that I know them. And then, so what's not perfect about that?
So I think you are maybe the first person I've ever met that shares my definition of perfect, right? Because I agree with you. Like I'm one of those, I'm like, if you are taking a pass-fail test and you score more than 71%, you've done it wrong, right? Like you have invested too much in this. And so I agree, like, you know, maybe like for our definition of perfect, yes, that's what I was going for. But I would bet that if you ask like just the wider audience, what's your definition of perfect? It's like doing all the things, checking all the boxes, getting it perfect so nobody can find a flaw, right?
I
and
guess
that's my version of perfect. But
yes. I have always wanted to have a part-time job and have it be enough. Always, always, always. You know, it's like, how do I make that work? And I don't know, maybe people wake up. Dude, some of these people wake up. Okay, I work from home, right? I own my own business. Is that a coincidence? No. And then with my staff, I'm like, we're always going to be work from home forever and always. Get your job done. If you don't get your job done, you're not going to be on the team very long. And then the people who are on the team very long are the most incredible human beings on planet Earth. We're a family. It's amazing. We support each other. And why would you get in the car and risk death, you know, just to like be at a place for like 10 hours a day? It's ridiculous. So yes, you and me are of like mind. So let me ask you this. So you weren't always an executive productivity coach. You backstage even mentioned that you don't like the word coach. Why it took you a while to warm up to it? Why is that?
I don't know that I've warmed up to it, to be honest, but I use it because it's what people know. It's like, it's now the most efficient word to describe what I'm doing. But I think I didn't like it because I was like, when I first started using the word, it was like life coaching. Like people were like life coaching.
Oh
and
my
that
God,
just seems
I can't.
I'm just very not woo-woo, let's say. Like I am tactical, I am practical, I am direct, I am all these things, but I am not gonna like be like, I don't know, so what do you think about, and I'm not trying to denigrate life coaches. I think like they, you know, that's their own breed of that, like it's important for people, right? Like, but it is not at all me, right? And so I felt like by using that word, I was lumping myself in with something that like wasn't at all what I was doing, right? And so, but then I tried for a long time. I couldn't come up with a better word. Like consultant wasn't really right, and like it. And then I thought about sports coaches, and I said, you know what? Like sports coaches use the word coach, and like that is more of what I'm doing. Like I am teaching, supporting, giving advice, like all of the things that they say coaches aren't supposed to do, like giving advice and all of these things, right?
What are you talking about? You're not supposed to give advice. Who says that?
At all of the coach training institutes. Like,
oh my gosh, that is the dumbest.
That's not me.
That's the dumbest thing to tell a coach in the history of everything. That's so stupid. Why would you tell a coach?
Because people are whole and they have the answers within them, you know?
Oh Lord.
Anyway, I don't subscribe to that. personally.
Dude, I don't either because I'm not a big guy on cults. I'm not a big cult guy. That sounds like a weird religion to me. It's like you go down the rabbit hole and people get these ideas in their head. I mean, the truth is so unbelievably important. It's so undeniably important, and it has been since the dawn of time. The actual truth. Did you see what I'm saying? Like, it's hard to say it sometimes, and you shouldn't always say it just because it's the truth, but the truth will set you free. I mean, you're talking to some dude who's grinding 70 hours of whatever, can't say no to anyone, is like suicidal, like whatever, it's going through like the whole 9 yards, and you're like, tell me more about that. But in the back of your head, you're like, dude, you need to make a change yesterday. Like enough is enough, man. Do you understand me? Are you listening to shaking the guy? Are you listening to me? Like, you have enough money, you're killing yourself. And if you die of a heart attack, part of that's going to be on me, right? Because I didn't stop you from the cardiac infarction that you're gonna have. Also, you have kids in your life, and what do you think's more important, right? I mean, the truth.
Yeah. I mean, and I will say, like, there are the different levels of what people need, right? And so, yes, I think it would be irresponsible of me in the situation you're describing I mean, this is what people are paying me for. They're paying me for advice,
yes.
support.
They're
whatever.
Not your friend. You're not their friend.
But I do think there is a place for people who have different needs, right? So for people who are like, they're going to a coach because they're just like unsure of direction in their life and they don't know they don't have purpose. Like, some people want support for that they pay for, And like, that's not me. That's not what I do.
No,
but
so I don't understand that at all. I don't understand that at all. I don't get it because I can't empathize, because there's not one iota of my being that's like, what should I do with my life? None. Zippo. But
that's why we're all different, right? I don't want that either. I don't want it, but somebody does, right?
I just don't get it. So I'm still trying to wrap my head around. So we talked about this, and I want to talk about this. I want to talk about race, and I want to talk about gender in regards to how one is perceived in the work environment. Okay. Mm-hmm. So a Black woman versus a white man, whatever, insert, box here. You mentioned to me backstage that as a white man, it might be more difficult for me to understand what it's like to say no to an employer, because I would feel certain freedoms that someone who doesn't have the same melatonin that I have, melatonin. What is it? What's the skin pigment?
Melatonin. No, not. That's melatonin was what you take to go.
To go to bed.
Melanin.
Right? Yeah. Melanin. As I do. So walk me through that. I mean, do you have folks that, whatever, like you said, H-1B visa, who have legitimate, grounded in facts, fears of saying no to their employers because it's, they're scared?
Yeah. I mean, I think, like, as I mentioned before, if you are not a white male in corporate America, then you have to tread more lightly to work. I mean, I wish that weren't true, but I think that it is true. Like, I'll just give myself, right? Like, I am white, right? But I am a woman. I am a really direct person, right? I have been told at many jobs that I'm too direct, right? You're not told that as a man, right? I've been told I'm abrasive, right? You're not told that as a man. You're told you're assertive, right? We just react differently to people because of who they are and because of, kind of inherent white supremacy within this nation and the corporate culture, right? I'm not saying everyone's a bad person, but it is something that's like built in structurally. And we see people differently. And therefore, if you're seeing them differently, you're treating them differently for how they say things to you. And there is legitimate fear, because if you are not a white man, you are, and let's say you get fired, whatever, you are always going to be wondering, was it because of my skin color? Was it because of my gender? As a white man, that never crosses your mind. You're not thinking, was I fired because I'm a white man? Or am I now not getting these assignments and people aren't talking to me because I'm a white man? Like, that's just not something that you have to deal with, right?
Yeah, so here's my problem.
Yeah.
I don't like corporations. Okay. I don't like them.
Yeah.
I was dating a girl who happens to have a lot more melanin than me. Mm-hmm. And she was at a company that was racist. It was just racist, but they were also like treading really lightly around there. There's like a whole thing. It's like a whole thing. And they actually were going to pay her a lot more money to stay. It's a long story, but so there are obviously race dynamics in any sort of like institution that we're going to hopefully, as the years progress, become better at understanding and empathizing with everyone's situation. But corporations in general drive me crazy because there's just like a lack of love and understanding, because you're not supposed to love each other. You're not in a corporate environment. It is like the antithesis of like because everyone's terrified of actually having love and respect for one another and treating each other like family and really giving a shit, like really caring about these people. And that's because, families are dysfunctional and crazy. And if you are really honest with someone and you're really willing to go to bat for somebody, it can do what families do, where you have to go to the mat, where some people describe it as that. And for a lot of corporations, it's just easier to be like, you're fired or whatever. So I don't have enough experience in corporate environments to understand what that feels like. I've only heard anecdotes, some girlfriends of mine saying like, yeah, I mentioned this idea, nothing, crickets. I told my male coworker to mention the same idea. Oh, great idea, Fred. That sort of garbage, which to me is garbage. But you have to understand that at Send It Rising, the vice president of sales and marketing, Michelle Farino, is a saint and a Hindu goddess. This woman, this company implodes without her. It just absolutely implodes. Shalee Wanders, Instagram influencer. I mean, I cannot possibly heap enough praise on the incredible. They're like entrepreneurs. So anyway, because the way that Send It Rising is structured and the way that we operate is so different from the stories I hear about these corporations, it's just I struggle to understand like how any like company could behave in that way.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't have any lived experience with it, I can understand why that would be difficult to comprehend. And it sounds like you're doing your best to create the antithesis of that. Yes,
that's exactly right. It's exactly right. 1052. I want to understand about what do I understand about you? So you did stuff prior to this. So let's talk about the stuff you did prior to this and how it led up to doing what you're doing. So were you a teacher? Like what happened?
No. So for the first, we're talking about corporate. For the first 15 years or so before I started my business, like post-college, before I started my business, I worked for early stage startups, tech startups mostly, doing basically everything that wasn't sales and engineering. So that means operations, HR. I spent a lot of time kind of running the people side of things. Often it would be, legal liaison and finance and like just all the, facilities, like all of the things that don't fall into the engineering and sales categories. And so, I worked at a lot of different startups. I also worked as an outsourced HR consultant where I had like 150 clients over 8 years of that kind of realm. So I've had a lot of exposure to companies, I guess I would say.
Yeah. So HR to me is this nebulous void of sort of, you just deal with it. So as an HR person, were you hiring and firing?
Oh, yeah. I mean, yes, definitely. You're doing all basically like, it's employee relations, it's benefits, it's like it's paperwork too, right? It's like hiring and firing, it's counseling, it's like not theoretical,
but I get it. So were you that scary person that you had to go in and the person and you're like, well, this is your first reprimand? Like, did you have to be that person where you had to like write people?
Yeah. I mean, I worked in startups. So when you don't have a lot of you don't have like a write-up system when you work in, right? But like I've had a lot of difficult conversations with people, right? About a lot of different things.
See that right there, that's the crux of it, I think, is that's where this came from, because you cannot possibly be good at what you do today unless you're willing to have those difficult conversations, which is the antithesis of what we talked about earlier with the coaches of like, let them figure it out for themselves and just continue to ask them questions. That's got to be the most annoying thing, that you go to a coach and they're like, well, how do you feel about that? You're like, you know what? I feel like I'm not going to pay you anymore. That's how I feel about it. So let's talk about some hard conversations. I know you can't talk about specifics, but help me out. Like, give me examples of some of these, like, ooh, you're stressed, you're losing sleep over this conversation you have to have.
I mean, anytime I had to lay people off, like that's horrible, right? I mean, I remember times when like I knew we were laying off half the company, right? And I am in my office preparing all the paperwork. I'm trying to hide all the boxes that I have for people to, and people are stopping by my office and saying, oh, how's it going today? How are you doing? And I'm sitting there going, fine, everything's fine. Like everything's great, right? Like I can't let anyone know anything. And then having to go have those conversations first with the people we are letting go, and then with the people we kept, right? Like those conversations are really hard. I mean, I've had to counsel people through like numerous ridiculous conversations, like how do I tell my employee they smell bad without making them feel bad?
Stop right there. This one we need to dive into. So I don't know why board games and nerd culture, of which I am fully invested into, comes with body odor. Can someone explain to me the correlation between Dungeons and Dragons and stinky armpits? I don't understand it. I may never. But you go into some of these places, you're like, what? How? Like it's and they'll put up signs. They'll like put on deodorant, please, or shower. Deodorant is key, writes Leonard. Also, John wrote earlier, here's a marketing statement: the truth will set your fee. So yeah, Alexis, Stinky McGee is a stinky face. He's a stinky butt. He's not using deodorant like he should. And it's a he, isn't it? It's always a guy.
Not always. No, not always.
Really? You've had stinky misses. Okay. It's usually a dude. Give me that.
Maybe, but yes.
In my experience, like 95% are dudes. Anyway, so dude comes in. Did he stink when you told him?
So yes, and I think there's two kinds of stink, right? There's body odor, and then there's too much cologne, right? These are
wow, that's
right?
such a great point.
Like both of them are incredibly distracting to those who you work with.
Yes, it's awful.
And so I think there's a few key things. If you need to tell somebody this, there's a few things you want to do. Like one, we don't want to assume they're not using deodorant. Like we don't want to make any assumptions at all, right?
Oh, that's a good point.
You don't know. Maybe they have a medical issue going on.
Right.
We don't know anything, right? So most important thing is that you tell them at the end of the day.
Oh,
because
that
you don't want
brilliant.
Feeling embarrassed all day long, going about their day. Like, what if they don't know? And then you tell them at 10 a.m. that they smell bad, and now they have to work until 6 p.m. knowing that they smell bad and that there's nothing they can really do about it at this point. Right?
Brilliant.
You tell them at the end of the day.
Right.
And then you want to just be really kind, right? You want to say, hey, I have something really difficult to talk to you about, and it's kind of embarrassing for me, and it might be embarrassing for you. And so I just want to say that right now, but I really care about you and I care about your success. And so I feel like I need to tell you this, right?
Yeah.
And then you say, so people have been experiencing some odor when they're near you.
Stop, please stop. Yeah. People have been experiencing some odor.
Yeah.
That's the name of my next album. That's the name of my next album.
Right?
Wow.
Kind
Experiencing odor.
Yeah. Kind and direct. Right?
You know what? You are the HR mastermind. We have to get to Brad's comment. That is such an HR thing to say. That's so funny. So Brad writes, I once had to counsel an employee who farted when he was nervous. How are you supposed to address that properly?
Well, is it a problem? Like, does it stink? Like, what's the, that's the first thing I would say is, like, if it's just a little fart and, like, it's not actually bothering anyone, do we need to address it, right?
That would be number one, yeah.
I would bet this person knows this problem. Like, I don't think you can fart without knowing it. Like, right. I mean, I don't know. So this is actually not a thing I would probably worry that much about. I would say, like, maybe you mention it because you're like, hey, you're farting sometime, right? Like, I don't know. Okay, it was a problem. I'm seeing in the chat.
Brad, oh yeah, it was a problem, he writes.
Okay, then two ways to solve it. With tech, like you can talk about the nervousness. We can work on some anxiety stuff. Or we can try to maybe talk about what we can do if we're feeling that. Maybe we can excuse ourselves for a moment, or what are some other techniques we can try?
Yeah, I think the excusing yourself for a moment. I think Brad, you got to tell the dude. I don't know. He says it was a problem, so it'd be funny to know if he's still like
He
an employee
knows.
or
This
whatever.
dude knows. He knows he's farting.
And what was the word you used? They're experiencing an odor. Oh
Yeah.
my God, that is experiencing an odor is a 8-syllable way of saying smells.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah, I knew this interview was going to be fun. Ladies and gentlemen, it's 11 o'clock. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. Shout out to John, Leonard, and Brad in chat for joining us today. Really appreciate you guys swinging on by. If you are like most folks and you watch the show after the fact, we love you. YouTube.com/Send It Rising. If you're watching on the podcast, iTunes, Spotify, or the 13 other platforms where we're there, we appreciate it. Hit the thumbs up button. Leave a comment. It helps the algorithm. You know the drill. A special shout out to our guest today, Alexis Haselberger. We're going to have her back on the show, we hope. And I want to make sure that she gets the final word.
All right. Well, thanks for having me on here. I had no idea we were going to be talking about employees farting at work. So this was such a joy for me today. It's a great way to come into the weekend. So thank you.
Exactly. Happy Friday, everybody. Thank you to Alexis, and we'll see you for next episode.